After 4 years of making homemade raw cat food, I have learned a few tips to make the process more efficient and easier. I am the Cat Butler, and this is my 2 ragdoll cats, Teemo and Arya. And today, I will show you how I make homemade raw cat food in a few easy steps. There are many benefits to feeding your cat a raw meat diet. Cats are carnivores, and their digestive systems have evolved to specifically handle a meat-based diet. A raw meat diet will keep your cat at a healthy weight, reduce poop smell and poop volume, have better dental health.
So calculus score 0 to 1, gingivitis score, not a lot of gingivitis that I'm seeing, 0 to 1.
Better urinary health, a healthier coat, and increased energy, all things that I have seen in Teemo and Arya. Feeding your cat raw cat food is much better than kibble, which contains a lot of carbohydrates that your cat doesn't need. This is often linked to obesity, which increases the chance of diabetes. Plus, the lack of water in dry food is not good for bladder and kidney health, as cats don't drink a lot of water and mostly rely on getting water from their food. So usually a raw meat diet will be better for your cat's health. And if you're worried about bacteria, their digestive tract is short and acidic, so it gives little time for bacteria to proliferate and get them sick. The most important thing of making raw cat food is where you source your meat. Of course, you want quality meat that is fresh, but you also want to know where that meat was grown and what farming practice was used. This is important because certain farming practices use treated sewage as fertilizer on agricultural land, which is a byproduct of the sewage treatment process. This can introduce heavy metals and harmful toxins like PFAs into the food chain, as this sewer sludge is applied to the soil used for farming. Growing research shows that this sewage that flows from homes and factories can increase the risk of certain types of cancer and cause birth defects. I'll link some articles about treated sewage in the description below. Heavy metals and PFAs are harmful to us and our cats, but it impacts our cats more because of their small size, leading to a quicker buildup of harmful substances. Therefore, ensuring your meat comes from a responsible, clean source helps protect your health and your pets from long-term exposure to dangerous chemicals. This is the benefit of making your own homemade raw cat food, as you have the power to choose where you source that meat. Out of all the national grocery store chains I researched, the only one I was able to find a policy that banned the use of treated sewage was Whole Foods, which they banned in 2014 from all their vendors. But you can contact your local farm or grocery to ask if they have a similar policy of not using treated sewage as fertilizer. For a raw meat diet, you need organ meat and muscle meat. The ratio used to mimic whole prey for cats consists of 84% muscle meat, 6% raw edible bone, 5% liver, and 5% other organs in order to achieve optimal balance. Organ meat may be harder to find at your local grocery store. I get most of my organ meat from some local farms and buy muscle meat like chicken thighs from the grocery store. Today, we have beef heart, beef liver, beef kidney, and chicken thigh for this video. If you enjoyed this video so far, please consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell. We make videos on helping you become the best cat owner, so please join us. Now that we have heart, liver, kidney, and some muscle meat, you will also need a measuring spoon, like this one here, that can go to about 1/8 teaspoon. A food scale to weigh the meat, containers to store the meat, kelp powder for iodine, vitamin E, green lip mussel for manganese, and calcium MCHA. I use calcium MCHA instead of a whole bone because I am afraid of chipping my cat's teeth. Calcium MCHA is a good alternative as it is natural freeze-dried bovine bone from New Zealand and Australia. Instead of cooking the bone like bone meal, in MCHA, the bone is freeze-dried. Cooking the bones loses most of the nutrition, whereas freeze-dried bone is almost identical to whole raw bone nutrition-wise. This makes it one of the most complete and effective bone health supplements. The number of capsules to give depends on the size of your cat, but a good rule of thumb is between a half and 3/4 capsule per every ounce of meat. I'll link the calcium MCHA in the description below. Other ingredients you need are psyllium husk and fish oil. Psyllium husk acts as fiber. If your cat is having loose stool, it helps to firm up the poop. I tend to add it to my cat's diet when I serve it during mealtime if I notice their poop being a little soft. I also add vitamin E at mealtime because my cats prefer it over me mixing it in. Fish oil I add occasionally only at mealtime about once a week to help make my cat's coat softer. I find my cats like to lick the fish oil fresh instead of me mixing it in. Lastly, I also like having chicken bone broth to add a bit of flavor and hydration to my cat's raw meat diet. Just make sure to check the ingredients and to not have any toxic ingredients. I like this brand because it only has chicken bone broth and carrots. I'll link all the items I talked about in the description below. I tend to make raw cat food in batches that last about 2 weeks at a time. This makes it easier for me and saves me a lot of time as I don't have to make their cat food every day. It also keeps the meat fresh as I have to buy fresh meat every 2 weeks. Teemo and Arya are very picky cats and they always prefer to have their meat fresh. On the day I make a raw food batch, it takes about 2 hours for me to cut up all the meat into each individual container. After I'm done, I store the meat in the freezer and defrost the meat I'm going to feed the cats in the fridge. Before I start cutting the meat, I set the air conditioning at 68 degrees Fahrenheit so the meat won't melt as fast. Cutting all this meat takes quite a bit of time and I want Teemo and Arya to have the freshest meat possible. Before I cut up the meat, I do everything that does not need to stay cold first. I want to expose the meat to room temperature for the least amount of time. So I spend time adding the calcium MCHA, kelp powder, and green lip mussel to all the individual containers. I do each ingredient all together at once. So if I do kelp powder, I'll work to put all the kelp powder in all the containers. I find that it is faster that way. I prefer having Teemo and Arya's meat chopped up, rather than grinding them. Chopped food requires more chewing, which can help clean your cat's teeth and promote gum health. The act of chewing mimics what a cat would do in the wild when tearing apart prey, which can help prevent tartar buildup and dental issues. The vet has mentioned that Teemo and Arya's teeth have not had much buildup in tartar. In addition, I find that chopped food takes longer to eat, so this also limits the cats from eating too fast and throwing up. A slow feeder bowl like this one here also helps to stop your cat from eating too fast and throwing up. I'll link Teemo and Arya's food bowls in the description below. I love how Teemo and Arya come and steal some meat when I am chopping them. They really love fresh meat. For meats, it is similar to supplements, where I do each ingredient at a time. But the difference is I will not fill every container with heart and then move on to liver. Instead, I will work on 5 to 6 containers at a time, adding the heart, liver, kidney, and muscle meat. I will then pour the chicken bone broth in each container and mix up the meat so the supplements are evenly distributed. After they are mixed up, I'll then put this batch of 5 to 6 containers into the freezer. The reason why I do this is so the meat doesn't melt too much. Any leftover meat from the packages I open that I am unable to fit in the 5 to 6 containers, I put them back in the fridge to keep the meat cold. I'll repeat this for the next 5 to 6 containers until I'm done cutting all the meat I have. The amount you put into each container will depend on the weight of your cat. I'll link a calculator in the description below. I hope that this was helpful in how I make homemade raw cat food. It may be tough in the beginning, but over time, it should get much easier. You just need to stick with it. It's been over 4 years and I still enjoy making my cat's food. Comment down below, what is your homemade raw cat food process like?